All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of LCS Weekly. This is the podcast where we're going to go over the news, North American LCS, European LCS, and then later on we're actually going to talk a little bit about voice chat in League, the pros and cons of it. Joining me again is going to be Brandon Stork. My name is Jared Warnke. Brandon, how are you doing?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we are going to jump right into the news, and what we're going to talk about is actually stuff that has been flowing in the League subreddit. A lot of people, they've had a lot of dynamic reactions to the trade deadline for League starting, and so a lot of teams are rushing, they're removing players, they're adding players, and one of the biggest ones was that Smoothie was actually traded from Cloud9 to Echo Fox. And that Echo Fox is dropping Phoenix, Altec, and Adrian. And so their starting lineup is going to end up being Huni, Dardoch, Damonte, lost their Academy AD carry, and then Smoothie. So, Brandon, what were your thoughts about that?
I think the Smoothie thing was a huge pickup for Echo Fox. Fang, he was okay. I don't want to rip on him too much, but he wasn't anything spectacular. He was just kind of doing his job to a decent whatever. And like looking at his stats, he has a pretty low KDA. His kill participation's relatively low. It's under 70%. While Smoothie, I mean, he was almost MVP last split, so I don't know exactly why Cloud9 did it. I think it was more because Smoothie wanted to leave because they were putting him on Academy. So it's really cool that Cloud9 allowed him to take or traded Smoothie for Fang to benefit Smoothie more than really the organization. Mm-hmm. But I think Echo Fox made a really smart pickup.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Smoothie is one of the better supports in the LCS right now. Obviously, the Cloud9 decision, a lot of it's sort of been shrouded. They've said a little bit about Zeyzal's shot calling ability. They think that he's really good. He's very communicative in scrims and on stage. He's been doing pretty well. So if they were going to keep going with him, and Smoothie, like he's been starting for Cloud9 since he joined the roster, like 2 years ago. So it's definitely understandable that if he gets benched immediately, and he's not really going to see any playing time for the rest of the split, that he would want to go to another team, similar to Meteos. That happened with FlyQuest and 100 Thieves. I think that we're definitely hitting this point in League where teams are going to be a lot more flexible with their rosters, and a lot of pro players might not be really happy with that as long as NA and EU are still best of ones.
Right, and I think we see kind of, I mean, not total complacency, but people get comfortable in what their role is. I mean, C9 had roster swaps, but the core was pretty much static throughout the last 2 or 3 years. And for Smoothie, I mean, for all of them that got benched at the beginning of the season, that must have been so hard for him. Thankfully, we got Jensen and Sneaky back, but Smoothie really seemed like he got screwed over. And going back to the shot calling thing, I don't remember, I think it was Reaper that said it when he brought back Sneaky, that Sneaky was actually a huge part of the shot calling. So I don't know if Zeyzal really has that much more shot calling, or if like the both of them make a lot of plays. I don't know. I really question Cloud9's decision on this, but
I think in terms of shot calling, it depends on the dynamic for the team. I know sometimes teams will have like an early game shot caller, a mid game shot caller, like a late game shot caller, as opposed to just one person dictating the entire pace of the game. So it could be that like Sneaky could do part of it, and then Zeyzal might be making like the bigger plays because he has been a little bit more over the map, playing stuff like Pike, which is a very good roaming support at the, as of right now.
Yeah, that's true. I have been impressed by his roaming support playmakers like Pike. I think Alistar too, maybe at one point. I don't know. Don't remember exactly what game I'm thinking of, but
whatever supports he'll just build Moby boots on and then just leave.
Pretty much.
But I
Oh,
do think that this is a really good pickup for Echo Fox because Smoothie's just been really solid over the past 2 years. And although like Adrian's not hasn't been the worst support, I definitely think Smoothie's a genuine upgrade from Adrian and Fang. I think what he provides in lane and then what he provides in like a team scope outweighs a lot of the other pros and cons to the other players.
for sure. I think it'd be hard to argue that at this point.
Yeah, I will say I do feel bad for Altec. I think there was a Reddit post talking about like the history of like Altec's professional career and how he's always just been like sort of turned over to another team. He was on like Winter Fox. He was on Gravity. He was on Dignitas. He was on Echo Fox, and he does really well on all these teams. But he just doesn't have that like star punch that like a Double Lift or a Sneaky or even like a Sven at this point like has on a team. I honestly think Altec is one of the most underrated AD carries in NA, and I think some of the lower teams that could really use a solid AD carry, or some of the academy teams that could use him to help get their other players up to like an LCS level. I definitely think Altec is probably going to get picked up. I don't know about Phoenix or Adrian, whether or not they're going to get picked up by another team, because Phoenix does take up an import slot, and then Adrian, he's had a lot of criticisms over the past couple of years from his time on Immortals when he didn't really have a champion pool to now sort of having one, but he still float like I feel like he has a very small champion pool in whatever the meta is. So if it's like mages, he can play like 2 or 3 mages, or if it's tanks, he can play like 2 or 3 tanks, but not much outside of that.
Right. And for Phoenix, I think he was trying to do more behind the scenes stuff now. Because weren't rosters locked in already?
I am not sure what day the roster lock was.
Okay. Well, anyway, I don't think he might not get picked up, but I saw on his Twitter that he was trying to do more behind the scenes stuff, which, look at what Meteos has been doing on the caster desk.
Yeah.
So it might just be a natural progression for some players to move away from playing and more into management, analysis, stuff like that.
And we have seen a lot of other ex-pro players do that really well. The biggest example I can think of is St. Vicious. He was a player for a really long time. Now he's a coach. I want to say on Golden Guardians, but I'm not positive on that.
Yeah, Freddy122 is similar in Europe.
But yeah, FlyQuest.
Okay,
he's
right.
He's on. But yeah, we see a lot of teams, they switch back and forth, or a lot of players jumping back behind the scenes. Lust Boy on TSM. And then there's definitely a bunch of others, like Broken Shard. If you remember him from years ago, he was a coach for a little while.
Okay.
He still might be. I think he's looking for a job at the moment. I think he just left the work he was a part of, but either way, there have been a lot of players that have been transferring or have transferred to more behind the scenes coaching, analyst, even just helping out other players. But yeah, I think Meteos will be good on the caster desk or like the analyst desk. I think he's definitely very personable.
Yeah, I've really liked him. He's well spoken.
Yeah, and I also think
what about Lost coming up to the 80 carry for Echo Fox?
I haven't really seen too much of the Echo Fox Academy games. I do know that he's Australian, so I'm not sure if that takes up an import slot or not, or if he's been here long enough.
Right.
To where
I was hoping you watched it.
But yeah, I know Lost had been playing in the Academy League with Adrian.
Uh-huh.
And I had heard some rumors that they wanted to bring Lost up for Altec, and then they were having Adrian play with Lost so that way they could also bring up Adrian. But obviously with Smoothie, it's now most likely going to be Smoothie and Lost. I think he's been doing pretty well. I know the Academy League. I know Cloud9's the best in the Academy League right now because they keep sending down high caliber LCS players.
Yeah.
I think Echo Fox Academy is still doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But I don't remember their record off the top of my head. But anyway, we are going to move away from that. We're going to talk about the NALCS. We're going to talk about the NALCS from last week. So what was your game that you had picked?
I picked Team Liquid and Counterlogic Gaming with Counterlogic's infamous funnel CLED strategy. And I know there was a lot of people on Reddit going off about why would you pick this? You're never going to win with this strategy. I really disagree with that. I think they definitely had a win condition, though it was narrow. They could have definitely pulled it off. I mean, they almost did once mid-game rolled around. But this strategy, if it works, it's going to be a threat like Huhi's Soul that you'll have to somehow ban or definitely prepare for every game because you don't want to get Guma stomped by this CLED flying at you. Plus, Funnel being nerfed in 8.14, which they're about to play on, you're not going to get the chance to bring out the strategy again. So people were questioning it, but I think it would have been a really cool thing to see succeed.
I definitely agree. I think it was really interesting, the Funnel CLED with Sejuani sort of duo laning. And I do have the match history game up for it. And honestly, I think CLG were in it for a little while, especially when they had that fight where they were finally able to kill Double Lift the first time and only time. They definitely had like a shot, but then in the fight after it, I think that made all like the highlight clips of Doublelift surviving with like 1% health.
Yeah,
and then getting
insane.
the fleet footwork proc to heal up a little bit. I think if he had gone down in that fight, that would have been really CLG favored. But I definitely agree that CLG had a very clear win condition. And I was watching the game earlier today, and the casters just kept bringing up that CLG had no siege potential. They had to keep fighting. So even if they were losing the fights, they had to at least keep trying to fight. Because if they weren't, they were going to get just destroyed. And even in like the early game, CLG were down 3 towers to 1 or 3 towers to 2 before TL took that big fight and they won around the Baron. But yeah, I definitely agree that it was a fun strat to play, especially since Funnel's going to be getting nerfed. I don't know if
you got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I don't know if you had seen last night. It was the MVP versus Africa set because LCK plays on patches longer than NA and EU, so we go on 8.14 this weekend. LCK goes on 8.14 after us, so they still have the Funnel strat. And MVP played 3 different smites. They had 2 duos and another. So they had Mordekaiser with smite. They had Karthus with smite teleport. That was in a solo lane. And then they had Tristana with smite. And then I think it was Braum and Trundle that were like the duo laners. But it was insane with all these like different Funnel strats.
Okay, I have to go back and rewatch that.
Yeah, I think it was literally played last night. I don't think I watched the end of the game. I got through a good amount of it, but I'm pretty sure MVP at least won. Because it was a best of 3. I know they went all 3 games. Because Papa Smithy was a very tired man.
Oh, I bet.
But getting back to TL versus CLG,
yeah,
I think that there were definitely some problems with CLG. Like, I do appreciate like the Funnel strat and how creative they are, but you still need to think about stuff like wave clear, siege potential, especially when Doublelift is going to be put on something like the Kaisa, another marksman. Because the casters also kept saying during the game effectively that it was an all melee comp coming out of CLG, despite the fact that like Vlad is technically ranged, but his autos don't really do much.
Right.
And that TL would just very easily be able to outrange them if they couldn't get if CLG couldn't get onto Doublelift And we saw in that one fight where they could kill Doublelift, they were taking a lot of advantages, and then they just weren't able to again, and so they just lost in 27 minutes.
Yeah, I think the problem didn't come down to the team composition really in any way. I mean, of course, you can criticize it, but because no team comp is perfect, but I think TL's draft and just proactive play in the early game really gave them a small lead early and then just able to capitalize on the mistakes of CLG. The Lulu mid pick is really good in the funnel because it just AFK, well, not really AFK wave clear, but it can push the wave really quick, does a lot of early game damage. And then the Nocturne pick was huge, just getting that first blood and then going bottom, getting 2 kills. I think it was 2 kills. But yeah, that gave them proactivity that they needed, where Huhi didn't ult until, what, like 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think it was when around the time for actually I think it was a little earlier when First Blood happened, which was at 7:47. I think he ulted because it was like a 2v2 fight.
That was more reactive. I mean, like starting their own play.
Yeah, not until a little later CLG actually start trying to take the game in their hands.
TL definitely played well. I mean, that's why they got the win. So
yeah, you just got to keep Doublelift on marksman. Don't have him play Vladimir.
God, don't have him play Vlad.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the game that I picked this week, and I picked FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves, and this was one of my favorite games of the weekend. Also, not sure when this is going up, but I will have had an article up on this base race, up on the gamehouse.com. The article goes up 7/26. I'm not sure what day this is going out, the podcast, but if you haven't checked it out, check out the article I put up about the base race, because it was just such an interesting game to see in a lot of different perspectives, because FlyQuest very early on were doing a really good job of denying Anda his kindred stacks. Meanwhile, Someday was just able to take over the game from the top side. Another highlight clip from that week was just Flame using his stopwatch underneath the second tier top turret, and then Someday also used his stopwatch next to him to lose the tower aggro. And then just killed him again, and it was just destruction from the top lane. And then the ending was just so crazy. I had to watch it at like a quarter speed on YouTube to just sort of see what everybody was doing in the last 10 seconds of the game, because you had Someday teleport arguably late to when they really should have realized it was a base race. You had Cody-san teleport when the first minion hit the turret, and there was a lot of chaos. Anda tried to Kindred ulti the towers. That doesn't work, by the way. Yeah. But I loved just how chaotic the game was right at the end, and how FlyQuest were able to kind of come back. I don't know if I would call it a complete comeback, because it was just sort of a coin flip at the end, but
yeah, it was more of a throw.
Yeah, what were your thoughts about that?
Thieves. I just don't know how they couldn't close that out. They had a strong 1-3-1 that they were trying to do, but they just couldn't finish it. I don't know what their comms were like. I don't know what their decision making was, but man, that should have been a free game.
Yeah,
if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, Ryu and Cody-san didn't die that game, and neither did Santorin on FlyQuest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just to set up a little bit what was happening. So FlyQuest had just gotten a kill into Anda, and they had just killed Someday. They just got all that shutdown gold. And so everyone was resetting for the fight. And so they had Someday in the top side pushing into the... they still had a tower there top side. And then bottom side they had Ryu. The inhibitor was up, but there was no tower. And then in the mid lane, the tower and inhibitor were gone, and FlyQuest was pushing down the mid lane of 100 Thieves when 100 Thieves gave up their inner mid turret. And then after that, Santorin had a really nice pillar onto Aphromoo. He actually picked him off a lot. Aphromoo was half of 100 Thieves deaths, and then they collapsed on Aphromu. And then around the time they took the inhibs at around the same time, and then Cody Sun teleported to the FlyQuest base to try and kill their Nexus, and then FlyQuest killed Anda, and just barely. Like I'm very curious to see how much health the Nexus has had.
I think it was like 2 or 3 autos from what I remember. It was close.
It's a little bit hard to tell because I think the observers were like off by like a quarter second.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
But yeah, I'm not sure. I just thoroughly enjoyed the game. There's a lot more to say about it, but if you check out the article that I put out on it, because it's a deep dive into sort of the draft, the early game, what happened right before it, and then all the intricate decisions each team made to sort of succeed in the base race. And so we are going to move over to the European LCS, where Brandon, you had the game of the week picked, so I'll let you take that away.
Yep, Misfits versus Fnatic. It was a match that people were thinking was going to be bloody, both great early game teams, but surprisingly wasn't. It was a lot of controlled play, more kind of poking out your leads where you can, until they all decided to go mid and just absolutely smash the first pick Yasuo.
Yeah,
that was questionable, I'd say. I get that you don't want Caps to have it, but I feel like Senkux was being really eager and confident to prove himself here.
Yeah, I think in the promos he was talking about that he could play anything into Caps and like he would smash. And Caps just had such an interesting pick lined up. The Wukong mid lane.
Oh yeah.
And his final build when the game ended, he had completed a Yomu's first, and he had a Tiamat. And then he got a Stormrazor second, which I just thought was such a funny item to have on a Wukong.
It makes sense, though.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does.
Truck.
If that replay where Caps just obliterates Hansama's Lucian. Just because
at the very end?
He Qs with the Stormrazor, and then gets off the Cyclone, and just, like, Hansama's down to, like, 10 health before he's able to react.
Imagine if he got his Duskblade finished.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
That would have been a lot more damage.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought the way that Fnatic played around mid lane was just the deciding factor, because I don't think really Whippo had much of an impact, so I'll just kind of leave him to the side. But Hylissang and Soaz even made their way down to, or into the mid lane to get this Wukong ahead, because by itself it might not have snowballed. It probably would in a solo queue game, but in a game where you have to be a lot more measured, they both seemed like they were just dancing around each other for the first while.
Yeah. For like a 28-minute game, I feel like the game didn't really turn on until like 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Fnatic had a really nice first blood. They sort of meme bushed Alfari in the top lane.
Oh yeah, that was nice. That was perfect.
Because I also like in that clip how they avoided the tower vision, that they had stayed in that little strip of fog of war.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Alfari was walking back to his turret, you just sort of look and you're just like, oh, I'm dead now. This
you just hate to see it.
And
yeah, that definitely feels bad.
Broxah got that one. But yeah, Alfari didn't do too bad, despite giving up first blood. I definitely feel that they bullied Senkux a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, the GA second item shows you that.
He didn't even get 100% crit at 2 items.
Yeah.
He's only at 50% or 60% crit, technically.
Yeah, and it kind of, you want to question that build path, because when you're that behind, sure, you want to minimize how much you lose, but with 3 tanks, you really don't need to build that. You're not building to win at that point. Building to win would be getting that Infinity Edge, but building to not lose isn't the way back into the game.
No. And also, Misfits, they had a lot of AD damage and not a whole lot of magic damage. Obviously, Mundo does, like, magic damage, but not enough as, you know, Whippo did, or even, I would say, Soaz.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like an all-or-nothing AD thing. And you could even see it with some of their items. The Frozen Heart, the Zeeks, there was a Knight's Vow, the Iceborne, and the Dead Man's Plate on Soaz. You know, when you draft a lot of AD, armor is definitely not your friend.
Right, and I don't think Misfits really played to the win condition that they carved out for themselves early, because Hansama got a double kill pretty early on, but after that, you didn't really see anything from him, except him getting one shot by Caps.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard for them. They played really scared that game, it felt.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. The first tower was taken at 17 minutes and 20 seconds by Fnatic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have like a Lucian Braum, and even if you just throw Trundle down and have Alfari teleport, that should be like a first tower at like 12 minutes, especially after he got that double kill at like 9 or a little after 8 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the game that I had picked. And you just, you never really know. You expect one thing, and then it's just always going to be the other thing. I had picked Rockhat versus G2 Esports, and Rockhat more or less had a perfect game. They didn't give up any kills. They gave up 2 towers and a dragon, mind you, but it was just a great game played by Rockhat all around. Prophet on that Rumble did super well. They had that really great fight against G2 in the top lane, where Memento showed up at the right time to counter gank Jankos and Wonder, and they were able to pick up the first blood, and then they were just really able to play well together. I did like the Urgot pick from Wonder. I think it's definitely good to, you know, have different picks, since you're having so much AP going bot lane now, that you can open up a little bit more damage in the top lane. And I happen to like Urgot as a champion. I think the rework did him well. But they just really weren't able to get up and going.
Yeah, definitely the Urgot pick was cool. I think it's a classic case of top laner, their jungler dying right when they gank, and better jungler wins. But I think once Prophet got, or I think it was Memento that picked up first blood. But once Prophet didn't really have much of threat against the Urgot, he was able to roam mid. And Perks, he's on a mid lane Lucian, which you want to really snowball to get ahead, but Rocket wasn't having any of that. Memento Prophet just came to his lane, ganked him, dropped the equalizer on him, and just blew him up. So I think that was really well played, and definitely good, because Perks is such a high caliber player. You keep him down, you already have the Urgot behind. What is the rest of the map going to do, really?
Yeah, another thing is the Trundle pick. I know Trundle's been really good into tanks, but when you don't really have a tank on your team, it sort of becomes really difficult as a Trundle to figure out who to use the Subjugate on, because you're not really stealing health and armor at that point. You're just trying to weaken them a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely didn't look good. They banned his Braum, so I guess he couldn't go on that, but that was definitely tough for him. He definitely made some misplays too. Like, I think there was at one point his top laner was in base, and then Perks was at his tier 2, and Jankos was trying to steal a blue buff, and he just entered a free kill.
Yeah, Jankos 0-4-0. Rockat, complete stranglehold. 11 kills to nothing, a 28-minute game. And they were just able to just sort of play all around the map, take towers, and I really just enjoyed that from them, because they've been playing like well against G2. They're like the Kingslayers. I don't remember if they've already beaten G2, or I think they might have lost to them earlier in the split, but they do beat G2 whenever G2 is doing really well.
Hmm.
So G2 is now like 7-3. Rocket I think is at 5-5. So if G2 really wants that like first spot, even like that second spot, because I know Fnatic's sort of coming back into it, they definitely need to, take every win. But that can be said for both the NA and the EULCS with how close all the standings are right now.
Right.
Unless
Definitely.
you're H2K.
Yeah, poor H2K. They're doing their best. Maybe. Probably not, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I do like how G2, they're still trying to experiment a bit. Having perks on Lucian, keeping Hornet on these mages. What did Fiddlesticks struggled a lot, but that was a lot because of there was a lot of range coming out from Roccat that could sort of keep him out of the fight. He couldn't really crow storm in, or if he was crow storming, you would just throw the equalizer on top of him, and by the time he got into the fight, he was already at a core health.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. G2 has a lot to work on. Ever since Rift Rivals, I mean, they were undefeated and they come back and drop 3 games.
Yeah, they've lost
That's
3 out of
rough.
their last 4.
Yeah. So, are they really going to stay a top tier team? We'll see. I don't expect them to go down to like ninth place or anything, but they might be falling like TSM has.
Yeah, could be, especially with like, I mean, they didn't make any roster swaps from spring to summer. It also just might be
Right.
the meta really messing with them.
Hmm.
So much chaos. How do you find order?
Yeah, I think that's the main struggle for teams. You can't just play the game that you've been playing for several years. It's pretty much playing a new game at some points.
All right, so that'll close it out for the EULCS, and now we're gonna take. This is the more open segment of the show where we'll talk about a lot of different stuff. Sometimes we'll focus on a team or a region or a specific game. But this week we are going to talk about voice chat in League. A lot of games have it. You just put out an article on it, so I will let you sort of take the helm on the argument.
Yeah, so in my article, I tried to take more of a balanced approach, but here I'm just going to say straight up that League should have voice chat as a competitive game in this day and age. It kind of seems like everybody wants to say that it's toxic and all these other things. Yes, but you can mute. For me, that's what it really comes down to. It's not going to stop the behavior, but if everybody mutes the guy, does it really matter? Um, there's also problems with that in regions like Europe where there's different languages being spoken and stuff like that. But for me, I mean, it's kind of a joke not to have such a core aspect of competitive play in a game that you're trying to push for competitive. Like typing just isn't a feasible way of communicating most of the time. You can type, but usually the only time you type is to tell somebody they screwed up or like generally what to do. That's
See,
how I think about it.
yeah, and just so that way everybody knows, League kind of has voice chat. You have to enable it in your client, and then it's only with people you're in a pre-made party with. So it's if you go into like a solo queue game by yourself, you can't chat with people over voice. You still have to type them out. If you're in like duo queue and you're not on like a third-party voice thing, then you can chat with them through League's voice chat. I haven't used it yet. I don't really know the quality of it. I just know that it's there and that a lot of people have been asking for more of it. Do you play a lot of other games that have voice chat and do you use it?
Yeah, I would if I mean, I don't really play a lot of games online, but like Call of Duty and stuff, I've used it if I really wanted to go hard. But for League, I mean, I've gone into Discord's links that people have posted and I've had a great time. I think more people that you're going to talk to are going to be chill than just flamers,
Hmm.
in my opinion.
Or at least you
But
would hope they would be
right,
chill.
I'm more
Um,
optimistic about people.
yeah. Like even in games like Overwatch, which do have voice chat, I usually just keep it muted. Not because I don't think that people will be like toxic to me. I don't know. There's something about like incredibly strange people on the internet that I'm only going to be talking to for like 20 minutes.
Right. I guess.
And then you could also get like the flamers that are just really tilted off of just a really bad game. And there's just a lot that I don't really feel like dealing with. I will say, if I did have voice chat, I would probably be a lot more negative in game, because like I just don't care to type something out to people. Where if like they're trying to insult me or something, saying like, "Oh wow, you're trash," and I have like a rebuttal prepared, I just choose not to, because that's just time wasted as opposed to like me trying to win the game.
Right.
I think another thing that like could be an issue is, you know, mic quality of people, internet connection. They get a lot of weird sounding things. People obviously could abuse it. And then another thing that like I have known for a little while, especially with like female gamers, where it's like I feel like if a guy finds out that they're playing on a team with a female, they might not always listen to them, even though what they would have to say is just as relevant as what any other player would have to say. I do know sometimes the male audience in games can be really negative towards the female player base.
Right. I think that's definitely valid, but for me, it comes down to having the choice, you know? Just not giving us the choice seems to be insult. I mean, I don't want to go as far as to say insulting, but if we have the choice, you can have people do it or don't do it. It's really not going to affect climbing that much. It would just, I think it would help just keep people's mental in some cases. I mean, some people are going to be like you and just flame everybody if it's easier, but I think if you have people telling you in real time, dude, it's fine, our bot lane's carrying, you just got to chill, build some ninja tabbies and get through lane, I think it could help.
Yeah, it could. I definitely agree that having the choice is definitely more important than having it or not having it at all. Because I would definitely not opt into it, just so that way I could keep my own sanity.
Yeah, it's all personal, but it's really hard to say. I just think in a game that's this competitive, and like even Clash, they put the voice chat in, and then obviously pro players use it. If you're going to push this competitive agenda, I guess, then you should bring every aspect of competitive to the games that you want to be competitive.
Do you think that having voice chat in League would help the challenger players? Because what we see a lot in solo queue is that people in solo queue versus even the worst like academy players, there's still such a gap between them in skill. Do you think that having voice chat would sort of help solo queue players get closer to being LCS players?
I mean, probably. You wouldn't be able to form a synergy with the team because you can't feasibly do that in one game with 5 different players every time. But just having that experience of talking to people and talking to your jungler, telling people where these certain players are or what you need at that moment, it would be a good way to break people in before they either go higher elo or into a competitive team atmosphere.
Could also be a good way to sort of scout out players if, you know, you have a lot of people that are obviously challenger, multiple challenger accounts. You can always, whenever you're in game with this person, you can keep like notes about they communicate this really well, they don't communicate this well, they get tilted, you know, very easily, they never get tilted. So I think if it was at least higher up, that it might get more players into like LCS. Because I feel like a lot of people try out, because we do NALCS has the scouting grounds every year. EU hasn't been doing that, or at least not yet. I know that they have like the open masters, but that's not like solo queue specific. But I definitely think that voice chat, or at least having the choice, is important.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Just at least give us a choice, man.
All right. So that's going to do it this week for LCS Weekly. Brandon, thank you again for coming on. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yep, you can find me at the Game House or on Twitter at Gandhi111.
All right, and my name is Jared Warnke. You can find me on Twitter at WarnkeJared or also at the Game House. We are both league writers. Thank you very much for listening. If you like it, have any suggestions, let us know. Throw it out on Twitter. Just give us feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like, and we will see you guys next time.